Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English. Today's lesson is all about participle clauses. Let's look at a sentence. While he was running for the bus, he lost his wallet. Okay, so this sentence is grammatically correct. There is no problem with this sentence, but it is quite long. This part particularly is quite long. Let's make it shorter. Running for the bus, he lost his wallet. Okay, so this sentence means exactly the same as this. The meanings are the same. And in red, this part is called the participle clause because it uses a present participle. This is called the present participle. And this part in blue is the main clause. Okay, the main clause, and this is the participle clause. So we can see here, this is much shorter. Running for the bus replaces while he was running for the bus. So, participle clauses enable us to say things with fewer words. And we can also say they enable us to say things more economically. More economically. The same subject. We use participle clauses when the participle and the verb in the main clause have the same subject. So let me come back to our first example. So here is the example again. This is the full version. And notice the subject of both clauses is the same. While he was running for the bus, he lost his wallet. So the whole sentence, both clauses, we are talking about he, this person here. The subject here and here is the same. Since it is the same subject, we can use a participle clause. Okay, we are able to use a participle clause because it is the same subject. Therefore, we are able to do this. Running for the bus, he lost his wallet. Okay, so we know that here we are talking about the same subject, the same person. Okay, if this was not the same person, then we cannot use a participle clause because it would not be clear. It would not be clear about who we are talking about. The verb tenses. Participle clauses do not have a specific tense because running for the bus, that is not a tense. We do not know, did it happen in the past, present, or future? We do not know. Therefore, the tense is indicated by the verb in the main clause. In the main clause. So we know when something happened by the verb in the main clause. So let's go back to our first example. So with just this part, we do not know when it happened. Is this in the past? Is this the present? Is it the future? We do not know. But if we continue to read, we can see that it is in the past. He lost his wallet. Okay, so this is the past tense of lose. So we know that the whole sentence happened in the past. Another example. Opening the fridge, she found a bottle of milk. Okay, opening the fridge, she found a bottle of milk. And so the long version of this would be while she was opening the fridge, or even when she opened the fridge, she found a bottle of milk. And we know that it is in the past because the main clause is in the past. This is the past simple form of the verb find. Okay, so this is how we know the verb tense. And do we use participle clauses in spoken English or written English or both? Well, we mainly use participle clauses in written English, particularly in an academic or journalistic style. So you won't often hear people saying participle clauses, but you will often see them written down, okay, in perhaps newspaper articles or a magazine article or an academic paper. Okay, so it's mainly written English. Types of participle clauses. There are in fact 3 types of participle clauses. The first type is present participle clauses. And all of the examples so far in this video have been present participle clauses. Running for the bus, opening the fridge, they are both examples of present participle clauses. There is a second type called past participle clauses, and there is even a third type called perfect participle clauses. And don't worry, because we will look at each type in more detail in this video. So we'll start here. Present participle clauses. The form is the base form of the verb followed by ing. So remember, the first example in this video is an example of a present participle clause. Here we have another example. Cycling home from the office, Mark fell and hurt his leg. So the base form of the verb would be cycle, and here we are adding ing, so it is cycling. Okay, so the present participle is underlined. The present participle is the single word cycling, and everything in red is the clause. This is the present participle clause. Cycling home from the office, Mark fell and hurt his leg. So what is the tense of this sentence? Did this happen in the past, present, or future? Well, it's the past, isn't it? Because Mark fell is the past tense of fall, and hurt is also the past tense of the verb hurt. It's irregular. Okay, so this is the present participle. It's called a present participle, but in this example, it is referring, in fact, to an action that happened in the past. Okay, ing. And there are several uses of present participle clauses. Number 1, to give the result of an action. Example: the building collapsed, injuring the people inside. So here the present participle clause is at the end. The main clause is at the beginning, and this is the present participle clause. And so this is the result of the action. Okay, this was the action. The building collapsed, and the result of that action is that the people inside were injured. Okay. So the building collapsed, which injured the people inside. Okay. 2, to give the reason for an action, why something happened. Example: being a big football fan, Mark watches every match. So here we have, in fact, the verb be as a present participle. The verb be as a present participle is being. Okay, so the full version of this would be, since Mark is a big football fan, he watches every match. Okay, since, okay, he watches every match because he is a big football fan. It is the reason. The reason for this is this. Okay, being. So this is, in fact, we know the tense because this is in the present tense. Mark watches every match. So the whole thing is the present. This is the present simple. It's describing a habit, a regular action. Mark regularly watches every match because he is a big football fan. That's what this means. More uses. Number 3, to describe two actions that happen at the same time. Studying for the exam, she realized she knew very little. Okay, so this, the full version would be, while she was studying for the exam, she realized she knew very little. Okay, so this is the past. This is happening in the past. Okay, so we're using a present participle with a verb in the past in the main clause. Okay, so this and this happened at the same time. Okay, so in the past, while she was studying, she realized that she knew very little. Okay, so this is the present participle, just this word, and the whole thing in red is the present participle clause. And number 4, to give more information about the subject of the main clause. Opening next week, the restaurant will employ 10 people. So here we have 2 pieces of information about the restaurant. So it is giving us more information about the restaurant. So it is telling us that the restaurant will open next week and it will employ 10 people. But we can make this sentence shorter with a present participle clause. We can simply say, opening next week, the restaurant will employ 10 people. So this word is the present participle, and opening next week is the present participle clause. And notice here, the whole sentence is happening in the future. So we're using a present participle with a verb from the main clause in the future tense. Okay? Now, before we continue, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's look at the second type of participle clauses, past participle clauses. So the form, if it is a regular verb, for a regular verb, the form is the base form of the verb followed by ed, and that will give us the past participle. Example, embarrassed. So the base form of the verb is embarrass, and therefore the past participle is embarrassed. And generally we use past participle clauses in the passive voice. And let's look at the uses of past participle clauses. Number 1, giving more information about the subject. Embarrassed by the gift, Jane didn't know what to say. Jane didn't know what to say. So what is the full version of this? Well, the full version of this would be Jane was embarrassed by the gift. Jane was embarrassed by the gift, which is of course a passive. That's the passive voice. Jane was embarrassed by the gift and she didn't know what to say. So this is giving us more information about Jane. Okay? And again, here we have the past. Jane didn't know what to say. Therefore, the whole sentence is happening in the past. Okay? More uses of past participle clauses. Number 2, we can also use them in a similar way to an if condition. An if condition, a conditional. Let's look. Used every day, this cream can improve your complexion. This cream can improve your complexion. So what is the full version of this? It could be, for example, if this cream is used every day, it can improve your complexion. Okay, so if this cream is used every day, and remember that is the passive. If this cream is used every day, the passive, then it can improve your complexion. Okay? And what can I tell you here? Yes, complexion. What does this mean? This is a very good word, and it means your skin, the condition of your skin. So this lady has a very good complexion, and that means her skin is in very good condition. It's clear, it's clean, there are no spots, her skin color is very nice. Okay, so someone with a good complexion has a good skin. Someone with a bad complexion perhaps has oily skin with maybe some spots. Maybe they're very pale. Okay, so complexion, this is a very good word. And number 3, again, to give the reason for an action. Stressed by her boss, she started looking for a new job. So the full version of this would be, since she was stressed by her boss, she started looking for a new job. Okay, so cause and effect. She did this because of this. Okay, so since she was stressed by her boss, she was stressed, so that means it's the passive. And in the short version, with a past participle, we simply say the word stressed. Stressed by her boss, she started looking for a new job. And this is the past tense, therefore the whole thing happened in the past. Okay? Now let's look at the third type of participle clauses, perfect participle clauses. The form is having followed by a past participle. So we have the word having followed by a past participle. And remember, a past participle is the base form of a verb followed by ed. That is if it is a regular verb. Okay? Example, having worked all day, she was exhausted. So we have having. Having worked is the perfect participle. Having, and this is the past participle of work with ed. She was exhausted. So what does this mean? Well, perfect participle clauses describe an action before the action in the main clause. So this is the perfect participle clause. So this action happened before this action. Okay, so first, she worked all day, and second, now she is exhausted. Okay, so we use this to describe two actions that happened, and this one happened before this action. Okay, and we can use perfect participle clauses in the active voice and also the passive voice. So first, let us look at the active voice. Okay, this is the active voice. By the way, this is an example of the active. Let's look at another example. Having washed his car, Mark went out for a drive. So he did this first. First he washed his car, and then he went out for a drive. Okay, so a long version of this would be, let me think. After he had washed his car, Mark went out for a drive. Or we could say he washed his car and then he went out for a drive. But with the participle clause, we simply say, having washed his car, Mark went out for a drive. And this is the past tense. Or in the passive voice. So in the passive voice, it's a little bit more complicated. So here we are washing a glass, and here we are drying the glass. Washing the glass and drying the glass. So, having been cleaned, the glass was then dried. So, having been, so we have having, past part, and then the past participle is the past participle of the verb be. So the past participle of be is been. But since we're in the passive voice, we have a second past participle, and this is the past participle of the verb. Okay, so having been cleaned. Okay, so the whole thing is the perfect participle in the passive voice, having been cleaned. The glass was then dried. Okay, so this means after the glass had been cleaned, it was then dried. So the whole thing is in the passive voice. Okay, we're talking about it in the passive. Let's look at two more examples of the perfect participle clauses. So just a quick reminder, the form is having followed by the past participle. So in the active voice, having lived in Spain for 5 years, John can speak fluent Spanish. Okay, so we could say here, since Mark has lived in Spain for 5 years, he can speak fluent Spanish. Okay, so this obviously happens first, and this happens second. He lived in Spain for 5 years, and today, now, he can speak fluent Spanish. Okay, having lived. So having, and this is the past participle of live, lived, and it is in the active voice. Now let's look at the passive voice. Having been welcomed by the teacher, the students sat down. Okay, so the full version would be, after the students had been welcomed by the teacher, they sat down. Okay, and in the short version with the perfect participle, we simply say, having been welcomed. Having been welcomed. So we have having, the past participle of be, and then the past participle of welcome. Having been welcomed by the teacher, the students sat down. Okay, so this is the passive voice of the perfect participle clause. So this happened first, and then this happened. Okay, so that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. If you're preparing for the IELTS exam, click here for information about our course. And here are some other videos.